coaching this year. Yeah, not coaching.
Let us know when you're live.
I don't know. No. It's actually, I'm leaving Admar too.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. I'd like to designate the emergency exits are to my right and to my left and in the back of the room. Roll call, please.
Robert Tillman. James Mooney.
Present.
William Ball.
I believe he is online.
There is, yeah.
Krista Barringer.
Here.
Christine Villarosa.
I'm here.
Susan Gage.
Here.
Raymond McClary. Scott Polston.
Here.
Timothy Wells.
Here.
Thank you. Would ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Polston, if you could lead us, and when we are done, if everybody could please remain standing for a moment, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like everybody to please stand for a moment of silence for Ms. Keith and her family, please. Thank you.
Can I combine the? I'll accept a motion for the approval of minutes from the July 12th organizational meeting.
So moved.
Trustee Wells, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Gage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Accept the motion for the approval of minutes from the July 12th regular meeting.
So moved.
Again, moved by Trustee Wells, seconded by Trustee Gage. Any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Lastly, I'll accept the motion for the approval of the minutes from the July 21st special meeting.
So moved.
By Trustee Polston. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Wells.
Dr. Will. All right. Doctor.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Presentations and honorings, I'll turn that over to Mr.
Thank you
Reinhardt.
very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mooney. But I just want to take a moment and thank all of our 12-month employees. As you know, the last 2 years, when a lot of people went remote, March 13, 2020, our offices, our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, our food service, a lot of our employees came to work every day. Over the last 2 years, we've been extremely busy. Capital project, the EPC, the restructuring, all that under the cloud of the pandemic. The job that our clerical and our maintenance and our custodial and our IT department and everything they do is truly amazing. You know, we could not have planned a better summer for being reopening and restructuring and our hiring, and I just couldn't be more proud of the staff, and the community just needs to realize how hard they work. I think sometimes there's a conception that there's an easy button somewhere and we just make a phone call and send an email and then schools open up again in September. You know, but there's an awful lot of people behind the scenes just doing tremendous work, and I'm really excited about September 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Reinhardt. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board with any concerns may do so. Mr. Ursig, do we have anybody online? No. Moving on. Communications to the board. Is there any public comment or discussion about the safety plan? Can I put a plug in? Sure.
So thank you, Mr. Mooney. Just let people know that our first meeting is in October. It'll be a combination, as of right now, it looks like it can still be a combination of virtual. But it is, our first one is in October. So if anybody would like to be on that, you can send your information to myself or Ms. St. Tamor. But we've got about 25 people on that committee. And they are also starting the in-person county safety meetings, which I believe are the first Wednesday of the month in the morning. And myself and Ms. St. Tamor and Ms. Keller will be attending those this year. So we're very happy that those in-person meetings, the county safety team will be meeting again as well. Thank you.
I'm not sure. Do we need to officially open it as a public hearing?
Officially open it and then officially close it.
I mean, we can.
Yeah, just to
Okay, so let's do that.
have it on record.
Sure. Thank you. So I'd like to open the public hearing for the Saugerties Central School District Safety Plan. Can I get a motion to open? Trustee Gage, can I have a second, please? Trustee McClary, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Any discussion? Any comments or concerns? None being heard? So if we could note that, please. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the Saugerties Central School District Safety Plan. Can I get a motion? Trustee Barringer, may I have a second? Second. Trustee Wells, all those in favor? Aye. Carried. Okay, do you want to segue right into your superintendent's report?
Good evening and thank you. Am I on or?
Good evening. I'm going to give an update to the board on the summer and the reopening. So first, as always, we start with our district goals every meeting, every time we get together. Once again, all of our decisions are based on student achievement, culture, climate, community, and safety and security. So just a couple updates. We're waiting on the New York State for any new COVID protocols. CDC put out guidance last week. We're hoping that the state mirrors those guidance, and we're really excited to be back as close to possible to a normal school year. We will be distributing Chromebooks to grades 6 through 12 in September. That's part of our technology plan. Our special ed classrooms are aligned in programs offering across our buildings and across all grade levels. I want to thank our special ed department and all of our staff on our CEC meetings for all the work they did this spring and this summer. As you know, part of our restructuring was the need for reading specialists. So one hopefully will be hired tonight, and we're going to start that process of adding that additional support in our elementary schools. And we're hoping to mail out teaching assignments and schedules by August 31st. So the board had asked me to present our enrollment numbers. As you know, this is a moving target, but this was as of yesterday. As you can see, we're really happy about our class size. One of the goals of the board was to maintain class size similar to last year. So our overall class size in the district is 20.3. That's excellent for a public school. Also, another goal of the restructure, as you know, last year we had a few classes that were over 25. Actually, at Morse, I believe we had 2 sections of 28. As you can see, we have no classes over 25, and we're still at that 53 section mark, which is what we budgeted for. So we're real happy that we were able to maintain both those goals that the board had put forward. So once again, this is our average class size. As you can see, we're much more consistent across buildings. We're always going to have a few ebb and flows because, one of the things with the K-6 model is we're based on geography. so we're not going to get the exact balance we had always hoped for. But we're really happy with these numbers and what we're able to do and be able to maintain. The board had also asked for our enrollment for 7-12. As you can see, we're pretty consistent. We do know that we have that larger bubble in grade 10, and then as you can see, as a district, we average around 180 in some of our classes, are as low as 152. Even though the classes are a little bit smaller, I'm really happy that the board supported the 6th guidance counselor. And we saw direct results this year with our increasing graduation rate, going with that teaming model of having the 7, 9, the 10, 12, a guidance counselor assigned, the AP, and the additional social worker. So I'm really happy that we were able to maintain those supports. And also we have our self-contained numbers. And these are our out-of-district numbers that the district had asked me to present as well. Okay. Some updates on Mount Marion. Once again, like I said about the amazing job that our staff has done preparing everything they've done with COVID and the capital project and the EPC and the redistricting. I could not be more pleased with the work that was done by the business office and the special ed office, especially Dr. Kapler. We had the 5 preschool classrooms have been approved. They have 80 students with a waiting list. So that's just wonderful. So that's 80 of our students. So, you know, we talk about, you know, flooding, giving all the supports we can at the early levels. The fact that we're going to have 80 of our students in one building that can have conversations with our district and have more vertical meetings. So I really want to thank Dr. Kapler for that work. I also think what really helped was the fact that we were able to get the partnership with St. Mary's and St. Joseph's to have a wraparound program that will extend from 2:30 to 6. You know, so one of the tough things is if you're a working family, you know, getting to a preschool by 2:30 is challenging. So the fact that this program will have an opportunity for the children to be there till 6 is wonderful. And I think that probably lends to the fact that there's 80 students and a wait list. Ulster BOCES is already in and setting up. I want to thank the board for having that second board meeting in June so we can get that lease signed. It's really exciting that we have that 10-year lease. The total of the lease over the 10 years is about 1.6 million. Is that right, Jane? You know, we do have the ability, if our enrollment does increase, to pull that building back. And we knew that that was a concern if our population ever does change. But it's great that that's now a revenue source and that building is not being open. One of the things the board had charged me with was to make sure that building was repurposed. And we are also negotiating a lease with the Anderson School for 2 pre-K classes in there as well. So we're very happy to announce that that building is completely repurposed. So that's excellent work by everybody. And here's one of the pictures of the little furniture. Wait, why are you laughing? No reason. It's better furnished than my first apartment, but it's cute. They did a great job, and once again, you know, our staff and everything they do is just wonderful. And the fact that these are already approved and we have 80 students coming in is just wonderful. So that's great. As far as the energy performance contract, here's updates on that. Some of the work is at 100%. Some will continue over the summer. Once again, I'll keep the board updated on that. And as far as the capital project, as that most of you have seen, there's work being done down at Cahill. The next will be some work that we'll get updates from Tetra Tech and DBL. We're very fortunate. It looks like we're going to be able, thanks to the help of the athletic department and the way our schedule is to get the track resurfaced this fall. We're thrilled about that. And as you know, we're continually revising and refining our original list because of the way the bids came back, with the hope of going back out to bid in December and January with a much better bid market. Our goal is still to get all the original work, especially our 1 and 2 priorities through our capital project. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Reinhardt. We'll move into board member remarks. Any board member wishing to?
We do have.
Oh. Oh, yeah, I thought we could get by with that.
Good try, Jim.
So chair of the facilities committee. Jim? You're on.
Thank you.
I think I turned it off, Jim. Here. Oh. Is that the same?
There we go. Thank you. I didn't know you were going to do such a great update there, so you stole the thunder. Right? So we just wanted to share some further updates with you tonight about the various capital projects that are underway. So this slide, I just want to point out, this shows sort of the entire process that we've done through on these bigger projects. And we have some projects that are in various states, so I thought it was a good reference point for that.
Chart, where were we?
Well, I'll show you a little bit more here in a second. Jumped in. So for the capital project update, we do actually have several things underway. So roofing work is happening over at Cahill and getting ready to have work at the Hildebrand building. Submittals are in, colors selected, that type of thing. And as Superintendent Reinhardt mentioned, also on track to get, no pun intended, the track resurfaced here this next month or two. Additionally, so the Morse stage addition, that has gone back into SED actually the end of July, and we're now working on getting the code variance that's needed for the addition into the Department of State, New York Department of State. They have to weigh in on it because we can't separate the addition by a firewall or having a big opening for a stage into the gym doesn't work. So that's the reason for it. And then as far as some of the rebid status for the next phase, as Superintendent Reinhardt mentioned, there's the highest priority items that have been identified. We're working with the admin team to make as much of those priority items happen as possible. We've talked about some different strategies that we're looking at to try to make that happen. Some of them are down at the bottom there, but the idea is there's a variety of things that we're doing as a team collectively to hopefully make things a better result this time around. So just some photos of Cahill roof. Some new shingles are going on, and you can see some various states of construction there. There will be some roof work that will continue next season, but there's a lot that's happening this year, so that's a good piece.
And we've got shingle work and EPDM that's happening over at Cahill. It's the rubberized roofing that's on the flat roof section. We have some sections there that are progressing.
So to sort of break out the various projects and just kind of where they land roughly in a construction timeline. So the roofing work, again, that's happening now. The bulk of Hildebrand and Cahill should be wrapped up this fall. There will still be some work that has to happen next season with the roof. Additionally, as we mentioned with the track, that work is scheduled to happen here in the next month or two. The Morse addition, so it's into SED. The idea is to take that and repackage it in the phase 2 rebid so that we're combining things back together to make that a more advantageous scope to various bidders. And that construction's, again, it was always a 2-season construction, so that'll be pushing out into 2024. With the energy performance contract project, so again, some other things underway, as Superintendent Reinhardt mentioned, there are lights, boilers, some of the building controls. Those things are happening now. Some other things that are mostly complete, building envelope insulation to seal cracks and crevices, things like that, pipe insulation, and some of the destratification fans that push air back down in tall spaces like gyms. So that one's on track, that project, to wrap up the bulk of construction this calendar year, and then the closeout phase will kind of happen behind the scenes, if you will, through the early part of next year. A couple of photos of what some of the work looks like. So on the left, there's that funny looking mushroom-like thing is one of the destratification fans. So they're tucked up high in the steel roof area. And then you can see kind of a before and after of boilers at Riccardi. And then on the next one, we have some various lighting, which is a little hard to sort of photograph, but I think the takeaway I just want to communicate is that it's not only much more energy efficient, but it's overall a better quality of light that really should improve student learning environments. So that's definitely a good piece. So for the capital outlay project for this year, again at Riccardi, looking at flooring work, and it's an extension of last year's project. That one unfortunately did not receive bids, so we're looking at ways to strategically incorporate some of that work into this upcoming project so that we can get out to bid sooner and have a more advantageous time frame for that work to happen. Finding ways so that the district has best price of everything. And that was it. Are there any questions?
My good way.
Karen.
The first one was just the fans in the gyms. Does that mean it's not going to be hot in the gyms? Like when we're all in there together, we're going to be cooler?
So it's not air conditioning.
No. But
the idea is you're mixing up the air that's in those spaces, so hot air rises, collects up there, so it's mainly to have a more even temperature.
Some of your construction phases, specifically I'm looking at the EPC project update, I see where you're going into the construction phase into October, and this is your LED lighting, boilers, building controls, these are the things that, I mean, you're in the buildings with it, and you're going into October. So how is that gonna fly with school starting in September?
So what'll happen, so a lot of the work actually has happened after hours, like second shift, while school was in session. So as classes and things vacate the building, then contractors come in, do work. So they're doing smaller chunks, smaller bite-sized nibbles, if you will, of work to get it done at a time.
In the past school year, Honeywell has done the same thing, doing some of this work in off hours, weekends. If there is some time frames where there's a long weekend for something, they'll jump in and try and take care of it then too.
And I did notice that when we did our technology upgrade and we were putting all the cameras in and people were there after hours with the cameras in. So I did notice that. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Yeah. Riccardi Elementary School flooring. Looking at that slide, it shows that SED, the design and the SED approval is happening the end of this year into, so I guess I'm confused because you shared that one, we didn't get anything on our bids, but I'm just looking at the calendar. The bids haven't gone out yet, right?
No, we have to do the design, submit it to SED now because it's a continuation of the project from last year. It's a little bit more expedited design process. It's really more of a repackaging to get it into SED for this year's project because it has a different project number with SED.
I guess I'm confused only because you said that one did not get any bids back.
So I'm sorry for the confusion there. Last year's project, the 21-22, was also for some flooring at Riccardi. So the sort of bluish areas that you can see on there, that was all the work that was identified that needed replacement. So that last year's project was trying to do part of that, and then this year's was trying to pick up on the other part of that. Sorry if I
No, it's all good. Thank you.
confused that.
I have a question.
Well,
So moving into next year, you guys are planning on bidding this in December-ish, I assume, correct? December, January?
Yeah, I use like
Kind of where you
January
target.
1st as kind of a.
Now, you guys obviously are in tune to the construction world. Like, what is your outlook on the upcoming, like, construction season? Like, I mean, I know we had a hard time because everybody was pretty busy. We kind of got out as far as the bids came out a lot later than they probably should have. You know, what are you guys seeing like for next year that we're gonna be up against in regards to getting bids from a lot of these contractors?
Well, part of the anticipation, that's what we're shooting for here, is that the timing for when we got SED approval kind of missed a good opportunity to get bidders for starting that summer. So if we have a package sitting the street right around the first of the year, we now have a good opportunity for people to plan their summer program and their extended program for the work that we have coming in. So that's one of the things that we've got. The other thing that we have is some of the COVID initial aspect where we weren't getting materials and material, prices were going sky high. Some of that is starting to abate, and some of what we're seeing is not gone back to normal, but it's not so much we don't know what we're going to get. So there's an ability to now project what those values are going to be over time, so people aren't throwing that number in their bids. So that's some of the things that we're seeing that are going to be some potential. Also in some of the process that we have here, one of the things, for example, I'll just pull this out, there was a large amount of glazing that was a part of the project that we carried within the general contractor, and aluminum prices were escalating. One of the thoughts is we may look at pulling that out and making that a prime contract in and of itself, so we're not paying a markup on top of some of those values.
Right. Right, with the GC's not paying somebody else, and then we're paying more on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then, I mean, so are you seeing, like for next year, or like you guys are probably somewhat in tune, like with the heck's coming out next year, I presume, or have a good idea, like are you seeing like it's a slowdown, or like, I mean, are we gonna be bidding against a lot of
I
other
think it's
projects?
fairly steady.
Okay.
I think that in general it's fairly steady, and I think that, because it appears to me, and I don't know, Jay may have a different perspective on here, but a lot of the SED programs were just kind of like hitting, and everybody's like, I know I can pick and choose because I have too many things to do. I think that through this, year that we've gone through, that some of that may not be as significant, and so now you have more people that don't have the pick of the litter with anything that they're going to. There's going to be some more that they want to chase after, so to speak.
And people becoming off jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think from just what we're seeing from a high level, it's a little more back to normal, dare I say.
Yeah, as close as it's gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. The new normal.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Ball?
I have a question. Yes, thanks, Jim. So just kind of piggybacking a little bit on Ms. Barringer's question relative to some of the construction that will take place during the school year. I know oftentimes, we have a lot of things that are unanticipated that may occur, so I'm just wondering, and this may be a real simple question, do we have an on-site, manager to troubleshoot things as they happen? So for instance, I know we had the issue with Honeywell, and that was pretty well handled. Once we have students in the building, I'm thinking about things like the cleanliness of the building and the actual sites of construction. If we have issues like that we deal with when our students arrive, so we just arrive and all of a sudden, classrooms are a mess with debris from the ceiling tiles being removed or some other element of construction. Who's the point person that addresses that?
So actually, Honeywell has their own project manager that's responsible for overseeing anytime they have any of their personnel or subcontractors of theirs on site, and they're responsible to do that cleanup before then.
When we get into the capital projects, BBL will have a full-time superintendent that is assigned to the project. Will be here. They'll be roaming through the different projects that we're working on. Each of the prime contractors, and this is if we're awarding a roofing contractor, if we're awarding a site contractor, each of those contractors will also have a full-time superintendent that's assigned to the district for the project. And when we're working on multiple buildings, we've required them to assign a competent person in each one of those, so that if the superintendent is going from building to building, making sure that things are going all right, that there's not somebody that's left alone not knowing what's going on. So that information will be available to everybody that's here so that we can get that information. If there is something that's coming up to us, and then again, we will have progress meetings, projections to let people know where we're going to be working, what we're going to be doing, and if we're going into a school, that principal will know what the plan is as it relates to where we're working, when we're going to be there, and the separation that we're going to create, because there will be some times we're creating a physical separation that allows us to work while school is going on, and the students will not interact with the workers that are here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? None being heard. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We will now move into board member remarks. Any board member wishing to speak? Ms. Barringer?
So I wanted to thank for the presentation earlier today about all the changes that have happened at Mount Marion, and I also read on Facebook this morning about the pre-K being completely full, and I want to thank our communications specialist for getting that information out and keeping people aware that they can still apply and should still apply for our pre-K program and to get on that waiting list, because things do change for individuals' lives, so being on the list is always a good thing. I do know from being on the facilities committee this morning with BOCES that they're slow moving into the building. They've got a few classrooms. They purposefully have not, just as I understand it, taken over their portion of the building. That they're doing this very purposefully and considering what would be the best programs to fit in the district as well as within their own programming. So it is good to see that on a county-wide level we are looking at special education and what's going to work in our location better than just jumping in and filling up space. But along those lines, and I was talking to somebody about how our district has really been developing new and more programming at all levels, specifically to target our individual needs of students. And so I'm going to continue to keep pushing for things like the Montessori program, or for the students who need 100% remote programming, or what other resources would fit best for our students in Saugerties. I think what we have happening in Mount Marion is an excellent opportunity to keep being innovative and to keep being unique to what our students need here in Saugerties. So I just want to commend everybody for making it happen and for keeping that visioning moving forward. There's some really good and exciting things coming out of BOCES, and I'm looking forward to seeing Saugerties hopefully pair with our BOCES and doing as a component district and doing more career readiness type programming on a county-wide level, and positioning ourselves as that work-ready, employment-ready, college-ready county that we are. And so there's some exciting things happening, and look forward to keeping the conversation going. Thank you.
Anybody else? Trustee Ball? No?
Yes, thank you, Jim. I'm gonna have to get used to that nomenclature. Thank you, I do appreciate that. I know Mr. Reinhardt, gave accolades to our 12-month staff, and I couldn't agree more. I know that one of the things that I'm engaged with, I've been involved in New York State American League and Baseball Committee for quite a few years now. This year was no different, and as we hosted some of the baseball, some of that baseball tournament this year, leading up to the state finals, I happened to be announcing in the booth over there at Canton Field, as I have for a couple different years. And I think we all know that the heat was absolutely obscene for a few weeks, and it might just be my age, but I just don't recall a sustained heat like that for about 3 some odd weeks. And from my perch above the ball field, I saw our employees out there taking care of for instance, the lawn. And I know that from being able to see Facebook posts and things like that, I know that obviously the cleaning of the floors in the classroom and preparing of the buildings throughout August is always a priority, and it's always very, very, very much appreciated because those buildings are hot. They're real hot. And, you know, I'm not going to say that it's a thankless job, because I think all jobs have their inherent value, but I do just want to state, you know, that I truly appreciate and extend my thanks to all those folks associated with some of those summertime tasks during that extended you know, heat that we had. One of the other things that I want to say is, you know, I know that the board had done earlier in the year a little bit of an entree or invited potential board candidates to, you know, to explore the opportunity of being a board candidate. And I know that more than one board member has mentioned things along the lines of, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to get used to, you know, having to process all the information and things like that. And one of the things that I've noted, obviously, since our installation in July 12th, is that it is a lot. And one of the things I'm looking forward to, very much so, is the upcoming board retreat. Because I think the opportunity for conversation, and, you know, I'm of a generation where email, I sometimes struggle for that to be conversational. I know emails don't always travel well in either direction sometimes. But I'm looking forward to the opportunity of this board retreat will present for some genuine conversation amidst the board members as well as school leadership. And I know that that's coming up in August, so I am looking forward to that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Trustee Bellarosa?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that this week or last week I attended the New York State School Boards Association Leadership in Education event. It was a live event held in Albany. It was, I think, their first live event that they had since COVID. And as part of this event, it covered sort of the new board member governance training that was required. But it was a very interesting event. You know, the first sort of panel discussed about the role of the school boards playing in promoting democracy and the, you know, how we as a school board can, you know, mimic how you can have open discourse, you know, differing of opinions, but treat each other respectfully, you know, those sorts of things. And they also talked about there being, last year, I think, a pilot program where you could have a seal of civic readiness on your diploma. And it has certain things that, you know, students needed to do in order to get that civic readiness diploma. So that was very interesting. As I said, you know, the remainder of the day was kind of the school board governance, the role of the school board, and there's a third session of the day was on legal stuff. It was very long and dry, but very important. You know, the one thing that, you know, Bill mentioned about there's a lot, and all these school governors have said it's a lot of learning, and it is a lot of learning not only what our roles are, but also learning about the district and, you know, the different aspects of the district. And there was, you know, some sort of statistic said that, you know, a normal person who's starting a new job 40 hours a week will take about 5 or 6 months to actually start making an impact on their job. And, you know, given a school board member might spend about 5 hours a week on their job, you know, it could take, you know, almost 2 years to, you know, become a productive member. So please bear with us, new members, as we, you know, go through this. The second day of the conference covered, you know, sort of learning loss and what different learning districts are doing or can do. And they're kind of not calling it learning loss anymore. They're calling it learning not realized or interrupted learning for these years that people went through COVID. There was also a panel on mental health and things that different school districts are doing. And I thought one thing that was interesting was one school district was partnering with their county, I think, either mental health department or health department, and we're having counseling sessions, you know, counselors in the school through the county, and it was no cost to the district and things like that. So I thought that was interesting. And then there was a sort of a keynote speak at the end from Dr. Donna D'Soda from, she was from Syracuse. So it was a very interesting conference. It was a lot to learn. So just wanted to fill everyone in on that.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Ms. Gage?
Just want to start by thanking all the 12-month employees. I think Superintendent Reinhardt said everybody thinks that in the summer, it's nice and quiet and just a lot of fun. But being a past director of special ed here, I know that it continues through the whole summer, and sometimes there's a lot more work in the summer. So I thank you to the administration, the custodial staff, and everyone that helps to get things done in the summer, but also get schools ready for our students to come back. I'm really happy to hear that our pre-K classes have been approved and they're full, and yes, keep applying, because we never know who's going to move or leave or for a job or whatever, so there may be openings. I'm really proud to be part of this board in what we've done this past year in closing the schools, but being able to keep our class sizes low, and the classes that we're going to offer additionally at the high school. I think the whole board should be proud of that. We keep moving forward in Saugerties and making things better for all our students, which is great. And I agree with Krista on the career readiness. One thing when I was working here, another thing to add to that was doing some pre-VOTEC work with some of our kids, because some of our kids get into VOTEC and they think they want to do something, and then they get in there and like, ugh, this isn't what I want. But so to do some more stuff maybe at the younger grades for kids to have exposure to what they might want to do, and that's something we had talked to BOCES about, and we hope that that continues to be talked, because it's really needed, and the career ready is really important. And I think that's it today. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Clary? No? You're good? Mr. Paulson? Okay. Mr. President Thoman is not here, so I will try to fill in his shoes. I guess I've sat through 3 administrations in this district since I've been on the board, and I think, every administration deals the best they can with what they have and what's in front of them at the time. But I do have to say, impressive is the word that really comes to mind this past year and a half. Joking earlier about the presentation for the capital project, sorry. These guys meet. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of time they put in. I know sitting in meetings and going through stuff with them when I do, and I'm not at every meeting, their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted. When they come before us, there's a lot of time in there, and I want to thank you. I also want to thank everybody in the business office as well that works with you. I think people don't realize the amount of work and effort that goes into it. Trustee Ball and Trustee Gage had mentioned about the year-round employees, and now the buildings are, they're being cleaned, they're being made ready for day one for our kids and our staff to come back in. And this year was, especially difficult with the moving of, one school into 2 or 3 others. So it's a really exciting time, and I'm very proud, I believe was the word that was used by 2 of our board members, to be on this board. It really is. I mean, we have a lot of people that don't get any credit, but without them, these buildings would not run, the doors would not open. So anybody that is overlooked, please know that you are appreciated, and keep up the great work. A couple of things. I say this every year, and I truly mean it. People are in such a hurry, and I find myself guilty of it too. Not road rage, but I get angry at people when they do stupid things or they don't drive to my standards. Please be cognizant that we have little kids walking the streets. and that the buses, when they stop, it's not an option for you to decide whether or not you are going to stop. You must stop. And I'm going to ask that Superintendent Reinhardt kind of let the police know that we really want to enforce that. The last thing we need is another tragedy in our community. That being said, we do have a couple things coming up. One is our board retreat. So unfortunately, I won't be able to be here for that. But if to my fellow board members, there is a survey that you were asked to take. If you have not taken it, it's in your email. I will re-forward it to you. Please make sure that you have it ready so that when the school board association comes in, they have a jumping off point. And I would also like to, Christina, if you would please stand. We'd like to welcome you. It's obviously we haven't voted on it yet, but I think I think you got it. This is Gene Greco. I'd like to welcome you to the Saugerties community on behalf of the board, and we wish you well. And please feel free to engage us whenever you need to.
And I will tell you that the furniture that you bought, the little furniture, is very comfortable because I did my whole day from one of those chairs and tables. Kids are gonna love it.
That's all, Mr. Reinhardt. He sat in each bed and checked them out. So we're gonna do the porridge test next. That being said, we will, if it's the pleasure of the board, we can take a break, or if you want to just continue on. Okay, we'll continue on. So we will, can I get a motion for item J1, the overnight field trip to Orlando? Have a motion. Motion by trustee Polston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Wells. Is there any discussion? No discussion being heard. Have a vote, please. All those in favor, say aye. 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 Motion carried. Item there we go. Sorry, I mixed up my pages looking for Mr. reference. Under personnel, item K1, 2, 3, through A through Y. Motion by Ms. Gage. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McClary. Any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carried. Welcome. I told you we would pass. Congratulations to everybody. Item L1, 2, 3A through M. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Polston. Any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We'll move into the business office recommendations. Letter M1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Is there a motion? Trustee Gage, is there a second? Second by trustee Barringer. Any discussion? Trustee Barringer.
So for item 5, surplus items resolution, it states that declares the attached list of obsolete broken items as surplus and authorizes the superintendent. There is no
believe those were the ink cartridges, and
It wasn't there?
It was attached.
it should have been attached.
It's attached.
One Dell case.
And maybe it's because it's not on the public side possibly. And I
Correct.
think one of the things is that it has, like, it's a public document, so I think.
Okay.
I know it, Jane, I know I'm a pain on this one.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to make sure that this
I'm
is
sorry, I
right.
didn't realize that it wasn't, because I was logged in, so.
Yeah, so we just need to make sure it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you like to proceed?
We can go forward, I just, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got another two, thank you. Any other discussions? None being heard. All those in favor say aye.
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 Board action items. Item N1. Can I have a motion, please? N1, the CSE, CPSE 504 recommendations. Motion by trustee Gage, is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Wells. All those in, I'm sorry, any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Item N2, the district safety plan. N3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Is there a motion? Motion by trustee McClary. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ball. Any discussion?
I have one.
Ms. Barringer?
You have a question.
Yeah, I think Bill has a question.
Okay.
Tri-M Honor Society. What is Tri-M Honor Society?
Music.
Thank you. Oh, good. Let's.
Trustee Ball?
Yes, thank you. For that same item, new stipend club positions. Yeah, I just have a question. And I know that, once these positions are established, they'll become a part of the collective bargaining agreement. And I'm also familiar with the fact that very often we have stipended positions, and every district has the stipended positions that exist in a collective bargaining agreement that have long since, been useful, so to speak. They either don't exist as a club anymore due to student interest or any number, even sometimes qualifications of faculty. So with adding these 4 new positions, I'm just curious, has there been a deep dive in looking at any of the other club positions and evaluation taking place about how many of those, or if any of those have
There has.
happened?
Yeah. There has. Superintendent
Yeah,
Ryan?
thank you for that. Well, when I first was brought on in the summer of 2019, we didn't meet with the STA. There was a lot of clubs where staff had been volunteering. So what we did, we put together a protocol where there'd be a time where there'd be volunteer, and then they would move toward a paid stipend based on having a charter, having officers, have it being student driven. And we've also worked on, like you said, there's certain clubs that for various reasons, either interest or staff, certain clubs, do go by the wayside. We're really happy that we're having a drastic increase in our clubs, both those that are volunteer and those that are stipend. And we're thrilled that they are student generated, very much like the 15 new electives that we're starting this fall. But we did start that process, and it's been a great partnership with the teachers, generating those clubs that draw our students. We know there's a direct correlation between student achievement and student involved in extracurricular activities.
Trustee Barringer?
Just as a quick follow-up to that, I did notice in the backup to this item, the requirement that all clubs, there's 3 requirements, one being that they meet regularly, another being that they have at least one event, big event, that's held every year, that is documented, and then also all of their meeting minutes or attendance sheets are maintained by Mr. Reed in the principal's office for the high school probably, and same for the elementary levels activities as well. I know this is a discussion we've had in the past, and I'm just going to reiterate. I know that there's debate at the board level as to whether we should be receiving a summary of how active the clubs were at the end of the year, or whether that should just be kept at the school level. So I know that's something we're still discussing at our level, but I think the extracurricular funds are outside of our existing budget. That's a separate item, and it's something across the state, auditing wise, everybody's always looking at. And so the need for us as a board, in my personal opinion, to be a little bit more vigilant over how active are the clubs and where is this money going and how well it's being spent, I think is something that we should do, since it's on us as a board to monitor those extra-activity funds. So I'm going to push again for maybe another future discussion item or policy discussion, something to the policy committee. Either way, to further discuss what our involvement is from that.
I believe that's done through the audit committee, right? Where the business office, being that they're paid stipends if they're not active, or they don't, their charter isn't filled each year. After 2 years, they're
right. So we
cut.
work with HR on that
Okay.
to determine who gets paid and who doesn't get paid those stipends. But those are out of the general fund budget.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that, and again, this is, I respectfully disagree in the sense that I don't want to micromanage the individual school, because some years you'll have a lot of kids that are interested in something, and then you'll have an off year where kids aren't. And then what happens when you have a situation like we did last year with the pandemic, and then kids are coming back, and then parents are kind of hesitant about letting their kids be around other kids. So I think it's got to be one of those, just, discretionary, I think, at the administrative level. And then if it shows that there is a need for us to get involved, then I would say so. But I think at this point, my opinion is just to let them handle their business in their house. Trustee Ball.
So, again, just kind of piggybacking on some of these things, and who is the comptroller for our extracurricular accounts? Is it the business office? Is it the high school principal?
I thought it was the secretary.
There's extra classroom treasurers in each of the buildings. So there's one at senior high and one at junior high that were appointed.
So each building has an appointment.
Of the treasurer. So then each principal is, it's called faculty counselor. So they're kind of like the backup to that, and if there's other sign off that needs to happen, the principal, it works with that. And then right now we're working on putting all of those books, so to speak, on our general ledger system so that we can help oversee that. And then our district treasurer reviews all of what those extra classroom treasurers are doing. So there's like multiple checks on that, and it also goes through our internal auditor. He does a risk assessment each year, and he looks at those in detail. And then our external auditor looks at it in even more detail every year, and there's a whole set of financial statements just for the extra classroom activity fund.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I thank you for that answer, and just as a follow-up, so I know, Mr. Reinhardt, you described the audit in 2019. Are there stipend positions that we've eliminated?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we can get.
No, but that's a contractual thing, and we're starting negotiations, but they are aware that there are several Schedule C items that are not currently filled.
Dan, could you repeat that last part, please?
Sure. There are several positions in the STA contract that are not currently filled because of them going by the wayside.
And what I heard was, and I know we'll probably be provided this information at a later date, but what I heard was, so there are several that are not filled. That's going to be based on enrollment. I understand your point, Jim. Sometimes this stuff waxes and wanes, so you might not want to get rid of those kinds of programs or those kinds of clubs, just because you have a down year or a down 2 years. But what I did hear is that there is a process by which we would be eliminating them.
Yes.
Or are you telling me that is exclusively only through the collective bargaining process?
So if it's in the contract, it's collectively negotiated, right? So, but we can't unilaterally eliminate them. We have to go through the negotiation process, or we could be there and it's not filled like currently ones are. So because it's there doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be filled.
So in other districts as well, if you don't meet the necessary population to run the club doesn't run. So even though it's still under that contract as a Schedule C item, it's not paid out that year. Because if the club doesn't run, the advisor, there is no advisor. But I do believe that, I know in other districts as well that's how it works as well. And I remember working with our 2 treasurers ago, setting up a double DTEC ledger where the students have to do the ledger and then it has to be checked on to make sure that the flow of money stays within the realm of the students. And I know that the auditor, that was something that the auditor had jumped on. So I know it is scrutinized and I know it is looked at. So I'm sure if there's no money moving through and, an account or one of these Schedule C clubs, I don't know, I mean, so do you want to choose a number, like a number of years where it doesn't go to make it a cutoff? Or is it just, I think what he's asking is, do we wait for every contract to say, well, nobody's joined this club, the duration of this contract, it's time to get rid of it?
Right, so I mean, just for instance, last year we didn't have a lip sync, so there's nobody appointed for lip sync. There's no stipend paid out for that. So I mean, if that's the will of the board, we can have that conversation with the SDA, but it would have to be negotiated.
But just to clarify, things like marching band. Now, I've seen where we've approved a marching band advisor, because it was just sort of a standard approval, but I don't recall a marching band meeting since 2016.
I don't believe we have approved the marching band. I mean, you have a new marching band.
Yeah, there's one coming for.
Correct.
Yeah, but as well.
But it has not been in the past.
Right.
Anybody else?
And I do apologize for extending this, and again, it could be just a small misunderstanding I have or something I'm not grasping, but knowing that we can only eliminate positions, eliminate those kind of stipended positions through the collective bargaining process. So these 4 that we're adding them outside of the collective bargaining process. Has this been negotiated with the STA? What's the process been, that led to our decision that we're going to have these 4 added to, the list that we already have, but we're not removing it?
So these are added through a conversation with the SDA. So we're not opening up the full contract. We signed a memorandum of agreement in which we created positions last year and then outlined guidance for adding new positions in the future because we value extracurricular activities. That's where that came out of.
So this resolution we're voting on is based upon a previously approved memorandum of agreement to establish these 4?
Correct. It is also attached as backup.
Thank you.
I would, just in closing this, I would just caution on eliminating clubs. If the club doesn't run, no money is paid out to an advisor. I think having a club there for future years is for kids to choose if they so do so is important. I think once you kind of chase people away, it's really hard to bring them back.
At the same time, I gotta just, I
If it's
hear
not
exactly,
costing us any money,
I hear
why would we
exactly what you're
eliminate it?
saying, but the process to bring a club to us is extremely easy. In terms of, as you can see, we've just created 4 new clubs. I mean, we have 4 new clubs that are being stipended. If you go back up to a prior item that we approved, we've added on other clubs that are there's no stipend, it's volunteers. So the process for us to approve clubs as students need them or want them is an extremely easy process. So I don't see that as being a barrier. What it does though, and I want to support what Trustee Ball is saying, if we take off some of the clubs, one of the policies I believe is that when we start a new club, they have to start as a volunteer first.
Correct.
But if you leave that club vacant in the collective bargaining, as soon as somebody wants to be back into that club, they're immediately back into the stipended position. They don't have to go through the new club process of being a volunteer.
Correct, and that was my point. My point is, if you're students and you're trying to get a club going, you have to ask somebody to volunteer their time. Whereas if it's a stipended position, it'll be easier for those students to find somebody to help them run the club because they'll already have a charter. Just my opinion.
I hear you.
Christine?
Yeah, sorry, just, I don't know if it was said anywhere, but is there a minimum participation for any of these clubs? You know, the old, standing clubs or all these new clubs, is there a minimum?
There is, but it's not necessarily cut and dry, because something like Science Olympiad, you can only have like a certain number of participants at a time. So there's not a blanket statement saying you have to have at least 15 participants. It has to be appropriate to what the activity is.
True, except that by October 1st, they have to submit their officers list. So with that, you have a minimum of 4 because you have 4 officers. So you're pretty much saying we have a minimum of 4 by October 1st. Now, whether those 4 stay throughout the entire year, flexibility does happen, things happen with situations on. But by October, every club should be at least a minimum of 4, is my understanding of the policy.
Any other discussion? None being heard. All those in favor, say aye. Or vote aye. So moved.
Aye.
We'll move on to the discussion items, the school grade reconfiguration. I'll open the floor for discussion. Any board members wishing to speak to the reconfiguration?
Yes. There you go.
Trustee Ball?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, thank you, Jim. I did ask for this to be added to the discussion for the board. And I think without any criticism, I believe these are the kinds of things that are worthy of discussion in a public setting. I think there's a lot, there's at least three members of the board that are probably going to be asking questions that have perhaps been asked and answered, and we certainly appreciate your patience as a leadership team when we are asking these questions. So in particular for this resolution item, and I don't know if any of the other board members, I don't know if it's been provided via this agenda. It's definitely something I've had some trouble with finding all the attachments. I've been through that with Jerry and Dan, and most of them are there. But for bullet 3, specifically it states, whereas the grade reconfiguration at the elementary level will allow for, and I'm going to create my own bullets. Bullet 1, improved instructional experiences. Bullet 2, fewer transitions between school buildings. Bullet 3, more efficient transportation. Bullet 4, more consistent class sizes. And bullet 5, greater alignment of resources and practices. Is there a place where those specific, I'm going to call them objectives, similar to a lesson objective, for instance, is there somewhere where those bulleted items are operationally defined and articulated specifically such that we can continue to look at them through the course of the year, this inaugural year for these changes?
Yes, they are. As you know, I think I forwarded to the board our strategic plan. Last year, we started building leadership teams just for this purpose. I don't have all 5 off the top of my head. As far as the reason why we put in there the component about less transitions, as you know, there was 3 models that were discussed throughout the governance. The first model was a grade grouping scenario of a K2, 3, 4, 5, 6 building. The concern of that, one of the concerns of that model was the multiple transitions and the concerns over transportation due to the fact that there would be less walkers. So that part of the encompass of that. As far as equity in class size, the way we were spread out, one of the goals was to redistrict in a way, regardless of the model. One of the cons, as in some of the PowerPoints that I provided to the board, one of the cons of the present K6 model is our class size is dictated an awful lot by geography, whereas the other models, where if you had all the second graders in the same building, the opportunity for more equity in class size would be an easier distribution. One of the cons of this model is, you know, the pros were the maintaining of the community building, but the negative would be less of an opportunity for consistent class size because we have to draw lines, and obviously the concern of less consistency having 3 buildings. You know, one of the things that we're still struggling with balancing out our class size is the tremendous amount of special permissions. You know, and I think that's a discussion for the board to continually have this year about our policy and the tremendous amount. I look at that as a significant reason for us to do what we've been doing, to look at what's happening in all of our buildings, to make sure that all the academic programming and all the expectations are clear and consistent, regardless of the elementary school. So all of those bullet points will be part of our discussions, our building leadership team and our district leadership team. One of the things that people know of me is that our decisions are data driven, and we will be looking at how our students are doing on our iReady, our other common assessments, how are we making growth, and how do we design our professional development to making sure we're meeting the needs of students based on not only the new reconfiguration, but as well as our students that are coming back due to either certain situations due to COVID.
Thank you. So one of the things you know that I'm looking at when I look at these, what I'm trying to, for my sake, and you know, I'm a little oriented towards the scientific approach and the data approach as well, specifically when it comes to identifying things that we say we can measure and things that we're going to measure. So when I look at this resolution, and I want to be really clear, these questions are based on things perhaps you've already discussed. But if we talk about, again, you can't take, sometimes you can't take the administrator out of the building, an improved instructional experience. What does improved mean? Have we operationally defined it? Have we created that, you know, measure or that baseline by which we can say at the end of the year we have hit these various various achievements, and we've defined what improved means to us as a district and as a board. When we look at, you touched on the transitions between school, fewer. What is our baseline? More efficient transportation. If I'm going to say I want to be more efficient, one of the things I'm going to tell you is what I believe my current status is in terms of efficiency, and I'm going to identify for, and I'm not speaking specifically to anybody, but I'm going to identify for you then what are the next several steps or the next several measurements that are going to demonstrate for you that this is clearly efficiency as we've defined it in advance. And the important part of that is in advance, right? Because we don't want to create the tool to measure how well we did after we did, or after we got through the year, and then we say, well, this is improved. All right. I want to know what improved means on the beginning of the experiment, all right, so that when we get to the end, let's say the inaugural year, we can really very, very crystal clear that improvement has happened, not necessarily just exclusively a sense of, well, it feels better. Greater alignment of resources, more consistent class sizes. What I'm wondering is, have we defined consistency, and established these baselines for these various measures, so that we're not creating, and I'm going to use a metaphor, classroom metaphor, the teaching metaphor if I'm observing classroom teachers, so that we're not, creating the test after the fact, right? We're not creating the test based on, how we think we taught during the year. We're creating the test based on some objective, very clearly defined operate standard and measure. So that's kind of where this particular bullet in this particular resolution is one that I want to touch on. And I talked about it, a few times, certainly even prior to Board of Ed election. So that's what I'm looking for very specifically. How are these things defined? And at the risk of just belaboring my point, when I talked to people in the past, I remember I knew early on a less senior English teacher who said that the lesson objective was that by the end of this lesson, students will appreciate Shakespeare, for instance. And I said, I don't know what appreciate is. I don't know how you're defining appreciate. I don't know if you can identify how your 30 students define appreciate, and I don't know how you quantify appreciate. Is it simply a matter of the fact that they have a about them, or they walk out of the room satisfied? It's not a good objective to say students will appreciate Shakespeare, because appreciation is not something that can be operationally defined, or actually I think that fact it can be, right? If you want to go through that process, but there's certainly better terms and terminology that would allow us to be really clear about what it is that we're seeing. And again, it would be prior to, right? Not in May of 2023 or June of 2023. So that's kind of what I'm after there.
All right. If I could, to talk a little bit about that. First of all, I think it's twofold. I am thrilled with the leadership we have in our buildings as far as educational leaders, and I do believe you can anecdotally see student engagement in the classroom. I think that that's a skill that administrators now have that years ago, I don't want to age myself too much, but I've been in this business 34 years. A good administrator was how they ran the building. A good administrator now is how the students are learning in the building. So, one of the things we have is we do have I like the Danielson APPR as far as going in and looking for those traits of student engagement. How many you can quantify, how many students are responding in a class, how many students are engaged. I'm very happy with the work that was done last year with our BLTs as far as setting up those SMART goals, which are measurable and attainable and timely. We do have our diagnostic data from last year. which we will be using. We are having an admin retreat in August, and part of that admin retreat is a data dive. We will be working with all of our administrators on what does that student growth look like, what are our expectations, as far as classrooms in which students are engaged and the experience is changing. As you know, we did bring on the 2 literacy coaches and the 2 math coaches to actually change the way in which we're delivering instruction to help meet the needs of our students. And last year, our elementary staff did an amazing job of giving the diagnostic in September, again in January, so we're not waiting to the end of the year to make course corrections. And then once again, looking at that data at the end of the year, and that was some of the decisions we used for our curriculum writing this summer. And then once again, we'll give the diagnostic in September, and we'll start our ground round and our RTI meetings once again. So, we will continue that training on working with our staff on those data dives, so they have the ability to make corrections in their curriculum and their instruction based on the needs of our students. And then obviously, we have those additional supports either for our extended school day or RTI or push-outs or pull-ins for other things that our students may need.
So I appreciate that, and I understand exactly what you're talking about, obviously with Danielson's rubric, because you can say how many students are engaged, how many heads are down on the desk. So in essence, for those bullets, that's what I'm asking, where that can be found. What is the how many for, success, high level of success? What is the how many of those bullets, for proficiency? Or what is the how many that says, you know what, we didn't hit this one. We said we thought we would, but you know what? Turns out we didn't hit it. And we can say that, completely and utterly based upon, these measures that would be like the equivalent of a Danielson rubric established in advance.
I have a question for Bill here.
Mr. Polson?
Bill, I was looking over when you did the request for documentation here. We got the teacher evaluation rubric that's used. I was just wondering if there's some specific points on here that you're wondering about. It seems like a very detailed form. There's multi-points, there's 4 different levels for each criteria on here. Is there something specific you're looking for that you didn't see on this form that could maybe be added in there?
No, I'm not looking to add anything to the teacher evaluation form. I'm simply looking at the resolution, which said these are the things we're going to see. And what I'd like to know is, do we, as a Board of Ed, do we as a district have our own rubric that says very specifically, this is what this means to us. Improved instructional experiences are quantified this way, not just because we feel better about what we did this year and we wanted it to be successful.
I'll address that. When we looked at the different models, one of the biggest things we were noticing was the inequity in class size. So some teachers had a class size, let's say, of 25, and other teachers at the same grade level had a class size of 12. Obviously, the kids in the classroom with 12 students were getting more one-on-one time, so they were getting more opportunities. So there's less consistency when you have an inequity, especially in the number of students per classroom. And by moving to this model, you can measure it. So you're going to measure, the baseline is going to be their achievement scores last year. And now we're going to look at achievement scores based on, age grade. So I believe that the benchmark, I believe that's the term we're looking at, is that I think in order for any program to go, Mr. Wall, it's 3 years, right? Usually it's 3 years, right? So I think we have data to kind of go off of
But we can't have it where certain students, because of where they live, have more access to education and more access to their teacher than kids who live in a different area of the district. So,
yeah, nobody's arguing
If
that.
I can jump in here.
It's not being asked, it's not the question that's being asked.
right, but my point, the point that I was alluding to is that if the class size is averaged out, now we can measure achievement because it's you're leveling the playing field.
I'd like to start by commending our administrative leaders from all of our buildings who have been presenting for the last, I want to say, 3-4 years of district data-based activities. And I say that really sincerely because for those of us who have been here, we have seen our principals come forward and say, look, we're not doing so great here. This isn't what's working. This is what we're putting in place. This is what we're fixing. This is how we're doing it. This is where we're hoping to see change. And we've had principals within the last few years come back and say, and this is where we improved, but now we're seeing this over here. We're going to start working over here. This is a very fluid environment when we talk about education and what they've had to go through in the last few years and what we had to deal with over the last. So I don't know that I would look at any of the benchmarks from the last year or the year before to say this is what we're going to start with. Because of COVID, because of all the things that we've had to experience. But at the same time, what we did see as a board, for those of us who have been here, what we have seen is that we had students in the same building, in the same grade, coming to the next level, having a different experience. We had students coming from one building from the 4 different buildings coming to the junior high, coming with a different experience. And then also coming with a different understanding of how to behave and how to respond. So we've had, I want to commend really the administrative leadership that has, as part of this restructuring, it wasn't about Mount Marion. This was about, we have students all across our district that needed to have a more consistent education and know that when we say the grades in 5th grade, this is what they look like, and it's consistent with all the buildings, with all the grades, and all the students. So that when they got to junior high, everybody was ready at the same level, with the same experiences, to take on the next level of activity. And what has also been so exciting in terms of improving education is that our administrators are now pushing not down activity, but we're seeing a reorganization of what we can do in our 5th grade and 6th grade that then prepares them for something else in the junior high. So the junior high is talking to the 5th and 6th grade teachers about what they should be expecting in the junior high. So they're getting them ready for a future so that school within a school, the improvement on the education as a whole is huge. So while we were seeing data in the last 3 years, benchmarks for me are the ability for our administrators to say that we have not only synchronized our education and we're ensuring that all students in Saugerties are receiving a quality education. And so as a reference to what our superintendent was sharing before about special requests, that people aren't picking and choosing because they think this is what's going to be better for their student, because all students are getting an amazing education. And you don't have to relocate because you think that's where all the good teachers are. So we should start seeing also, when we talk about data, a decrease of our special requests, because people see it's not about the building, it's about the district. So that's my thoughts.
Ms. Bellarosa?
Yeah, so I just want to chime in here as well. And I hear what Mr. Ball is saying, and I also hear what Krista is saying, but a lot of things what Krista, I believe, is saying is, how, the students achieve in each individual building. Well, could that have been done with 4 buildings? What makes going down to 3 the reason why this is happening? And like the bench, and I believe with Bill that we need some sort of metric by we can say that this has or will be successful. You know, we need to say what we were trying to achieve with bringing the 3 schools together, you know, 4 down to 3, why, and what are we measuring that actually was very successful? I agree with that. And then this point about special permissions, I agree that needs to be something that's probably discussed as a board, because it's meant to be daycare, and, you know, I don't know if these enrollment numbers include all special permissions, if they include just special permissions to qualified daycares or certified daycares, if non-certified daycares have been permitted, but to not permit non-certified daycares, I believe, does exacerbate the inequities, because you're then excluding people who have tried to choose daycares in district, you know, with family members who may be taking care of their kids who can't afford a certified daycare. So I definitely think special permissions needs to be something that we do look at as a district.
And I want to be clear, you know, I alluded to this in my board comments. You know, as a new board member, there are questions that are going to come up that are going to make people, you know, possibly instinctively feel that's a criticism, as opposed to, hey, I genuinely think that this resolution, you know, could have better articulation. And we still have the chance to do that. My reason for bringing this up as a discussion item is not to revisit the previous year and a half that led to the January 11th resolution. It is not. And I have not, certainly, and I know it has been brought up thus far, I certainly have not mentioned Mount Marion once. You know, but the fact that we had perhaps such a difficult environment, not perhaps, we had a terrible environment during COVID, is you know, in terms of student engagement, in terms of student achievement, that is all the more reason for us to say, this is what we're going to start with, and this is what we hope to get to. So for instance, Ms. Barringer, you mentioned you would see a measure of success as something like the lowering of special class requests. And I would agree, if that is, you know, one of the items by which we would measure the success of, you know, the respective part of that resolution, then that should be articulated somewhere. So what I want to be really clear on is, I'm not revisiting the decision to close. What I'm saying is, for this particular resolution, and this is my opinion, I believe that those items that I drew out as bullets, improved instructional experiences, fewer transitions, more efficient, more consistent, greater alignment, I believe those things right there need to be developed and articulated consistently in advance and consistently reviewed over the year, so that we as a board, when we're reviewing this information, you know, we can say at the end of the day, yes, it's not just that we're satisfied with our decision to close a school, right? It's that we have created these not remotely subjective parameters, these rubrics, these benchmarks by which we can say, here is evidence of more efficient transportation. Here is the evidence of improved instructional experiences. And I don't want to hear that, you know, well, here are some statistics right after the fact. I want to know what we're looking to specifically. Okay, so
Trustee Ball, just really quick, I think one thing that we really need to understand is that education changes all the time. So I have to go back to you and say, can you tell us where Common Core was successful? Can you tell me, like, things change all the time. And so for us, the only things we can really consider stable and what we consistently look at are the data that the superintendent was sharing. It's the data that our administrators present to us every year. But beyond that, tomorrow could be a hurricane. There's always something changing, something that's going to impact the education system as a whole and how we put it forward. So for you to say that because of this change, what is the outcome and how successful was that change? You'll never be able to take out all the variables that could also impact each and every student over that course of that year. We, as a board, the only thing we can do is make those decisions each and every year, each and every meeting, with the hope that we're continuing to move things forward and that we're continuing to improve that same set of data that we look at every single year. That stays stable. Nothing else about education in the tenure that I've had here has been stable. I have been through, I think, in the time I've been here, 3 different education models from the state, at least 2 commissioners. So things are constantly in flux. And if you think and when I first came on, one of the first things, someone will remember the Princeton model. And I was with you and the same thinking when that Princeton model came out. I said, so how are we going to prove that it's successful? So I was thinking the same thing, but know that I learned since that time that the Princeton model was just one aspect of what was going on for those students in Riccardi. So for me to turn around and say, well, I don't know, was it successful? Well, I have to take out all the other variables that happened for them during that time that it was occurring. So we have to recognize that things are changing and things are in flux, and so your data set is what stays constant. You're not going to get something specific to this change.
And I think if we have data sets, as you're describing, and I don't have for a minute, basis, I'm not saying that, then let's identify the specific data sets that are tied to the specific item in that resolution.
Okay, I'd like to just chime in a little bit. I think it's important to set the groundwork. Ms. Bellarosa, there was multiple facets to the decision. The goal is always student achievement. The challenge we had was an enrollment that started at 3,500 and was now down to 2,300. And I inherited a district that, I mean, you guys remember my first board meeting, we were looking at a $1.3 million deficit. I was charged from the board to reclaim that deficit and add or improve programming. And that's what we did. I'm really proud of what we've done the last couple of years. Our graduation rate has increased, and I'm extremely confident that our benchmarks will increase. State scores are one of those barometers. I don't like to weigh them the most, but right now that is one of the most consistent ones we have. I'm very happy with the iReady. That program has been implemented, which gives us multiple benchmarks, and we're also, one of the goals is common assessment, so we can really have our teachers create those. As far as showing consistency across the district, that is done because we've already started curriculum writing this summer and pacing guides, so that when we walk into a 5th grade class, regardless of the building, are they all on the same pace and are they all getting the same outcomes? So, you know, this is a process. Do I believe we will have the data points? We do have the data points because we spent last year, and if you can ask anybody that was on the BLTs, it was about growth, right? We were not out, it was not a gotcha to the principals, it was not a gotcha to the teachers. It was to learn to look at where our students are, how do we change the way we're presenting and delivering instruction for student growth, with the expectation that we will revisit this every year, and also how do we then implement professional development so that all of our students are growing. As you know, we made a very huge, and I think a tough commitment that within a few years, we want all of our students on or above grade level. So yes, we know there's going to be academic growth, there's going to be change, but you know, the precipice for this decision, you know, still comes back to the reality of a 33% decrease in enrollment and less funding. But our expectation was to take that challenge and improve the life and the academic opportunities for all of our students, and that was K-12.
Ms. Bellarosa?
Yep, so I just wanted to ask, so I know that we state a number of times that we want to be honored above grade level at, a certain grade. So what's the data points we have now where our students are at their grade level, reading at a certain grade level? And, so what is that number now? And then what do the measure of success is that every one of the students at that grade is going to be at grade level. So do we have those data points now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. Am I on? We started that, but we also we actually retrained, when did we retrain all the staff? In May, we actually retrained every single one of our elementary teachers so that every single elementary teacher would be evaluating that data at the exact same point. In the past, it was done differently, but we believe the classroom teachers should be doing that evaluating, and that evaluating should be consistently, so we retrain the entire staff. So we do have those data points, and we also have the additional literacy coaches, and we also are hiring the reading specialists to help those students get to that benchmark. So we are hoping that those opportunities, and we are going to continually thread those throughout our buildings.
Any further discussion?
Jim, I'd just like to say once again, and for myself, finally, my interest in this being a discussion is not to revisit the decision. It is to ensure that for that particular resolution, we have operationally defined all those things that we said we're going to do, and we have the ability to measure them specifically. And I know I've heard a lot of different types of data sets that we already have in the district. So which ones is it that are tied to this particular resolution? And can we articulate that so that it's directly tied to the resolution for the public? Thank you.
Thank you. Move on into committee reports. Audit committee.
So Jane and I are talking, and I know we need to get a meeting in before October. So for all those who are on the audit committee, you should be expecting to get some communication soon about planning some dates.
Okay. As far as the facilities committee goes, at every meeting, pretty much there's no point in me talking because everything's kind of laid out, which is really nice. Our next meeting, I believe, is the 7th. It's at 4:30, and right now we've kind of gone through things, the EDC and the capital projects, and each building, making sure that everybody's ready to go, and so far so good. Please join us. Policy, Mr. McClary.
Policy, we did not have a meeting in August. I need to take a short leave, so I will not be at the September meeting, but hope to have a date for the policy meeting, hopefully looking at the third week in September.
Move into public recognition. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board? Sir, please approach the podium, state your name and your residence.
My name is John McFeely, 52 Grandview Circle, Saugerties.
Thank you.
My question is, I'll give you the background how it started. In a bar, hearing people talk, friends. I've been living here 10 years, but the scuttlebutt about what's going on with Joe DeFino. And what I heard was he was kind of removing a very popular guy known through Hope Rocks and the music scene.
I just need to, before you go any further, we cannot publicly discuss an employee. It's a personnel issue, and it would be in violation of Mr. DeFino's rights and his privacy. So I just want to caution you on that.
Okay, I'll understand, but I'll get the answer on what I...
Right, but I mean, if I stop you, you have to stop.
Are you stopping me?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, I was struck by, I heard the story, I went and tried to research it myself, nothing, obviously nothing in Google, nothing in Freeman, and in Facebook. Cole Pantanelli had some problems, and the community got behind her, and there's a bit of a big hush behind this, and I know stories of which I won't share now, but what I've heard, it's sort of like, you know, put some people in, you know, in the room in not such a nice light, but, so there's no official story. Joe's been removed from his position to a position not of his choosing.
I don't know that to be true.
Okay. Do I have the opportunity to ask that question? Do I, or the right to ask that? And the answer could be an official answer? Because I intend to start, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you're free to do whatever you want on
Shining a light on
Facebook.
what I hear might be someone that doesn't fall right in line, as Ms. Antonelli. I understand that mistake.
Well, anything that you wish to foil, you can. And I think if you choose to do that, you might find the answers that you might not be looking for.
That's very, very cryptic. Okay.
That's the best I can do.
Okay.
But we cannot discuss Mr. DeFino.
Okay.
Mr. DeFino is a professional, he's an educator, he is well loved by the community. I believe he was placed in a position where it was felt he could affect the best outcome for our students. And
Well, that's not the scuttle, that's what I'm trying to, you know.
Right. Well, you know, I
before it
mean,
comes to it.
I moved to a middle school from the high school and people thought I got in trouble. Okay? That wasn't the case. I asked to go.
Okay. That's not the case
so-
with Joe, from what I hear.
Well, are you hearing it from Joe?
No. Joe won't talk.
Because Joe's professional, and I think that's you know.
Okay.
If I came into the board meeting every time and said, hey, I heard this, they would shut me down real fast.
Well.
And I don't mean to shut you down, Mr. McFeely. It's hearsay.
Okay, I'll accept that. Can I ask then about what's not, is there a public, I also did some research on the Antonelli case. Is that I understand is there an official outcome to what happened to her? Because I can't find it.
She just resigned. She's retired.
There was an official outcome, we cannot discuss matters. So, you can request as was indicated. We cannot discuss.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public? Is there anybody online wishing to?
No.
No? Okay, we'll move into, do we have anything to discuss for executive
Yes.
session? Make a motion to go into executive session, anybody?
Second.
Dr. Gage makes a motion, seconded by Trustee Wells. All those in favor? Aye. We will not be coming out to vote on anything, so thank you for coming. Congratulations, and everybody have a good night. Okay, I'd like to
Oh, that's
honor a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Polston. Any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to dismiss the meeting.
Moved.
So moved by trustee Ball. Is there a second? Mr. Van Schack is not here. We need
Second for Paul.
Second by trustee McClary. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a great night.